Hi and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to look at working on this particular piece. Now this is a watercolor study that I did. The watercolor study is about 9 by 12 inches. And what I'd like to do is do an oil painting of this. And typically what I do is I work in watercolor for studies and sometimes larger completed pieces. And then I go into oil or acrylic with the same subject matter. So this is how I would start this particular piece in oil, working from a watercolor. So this is the landscape I have here. It's horizontal. And let me go ahead and move this out. And what I'm going to be doing is working, pardon my hands, working on a 9 by 12 inch, no, I think it's an 11 by 14 inch canvas. It's a canvas panel, which I like working on. There's no sides to it. It's just a panel. They're very easy to work on, easy to transport if you're in the field. And I have already stained this with some burnt sienna. I stain them ahead of time. Usually do a batch of canvases together with no particular thought in mind as to what I'm going to be painting. So there's different levels of burnt sienna stain here. Sometimes I work with it as part of the composition. I set this up with this on the darker side, thinking there is a darker element on my watercolor that I could do that with, utilize that. I'm not thinking clearly. I guess I didn't have enough coffee this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and start sketching this out, keeping in mind there are rules for everything. And when you do a composition, they tell you not to cut your composition in half. This one's going to be kind of cut in half. And then again, I can always fix it when I go into oil. I'm just using a regular old number 2 HB pencil that I've had for years. Some artists like to use charcoal stick. I just use a pencil, primarily for guidelines. So we got this little horizon line here, and then we have a mountain chain coming in here. I may raise that up a little bit. One of the things that I find is I try to look at what I did on the watercolor study and then correct it on what I hope will be a completed piece. That doesn't always work in my world, and it depends on my mood. It depends on what's going on. Sometimes I'll start a painting and go, this is the direction I want to go in, and it'll just totally turn and go a whole different way. So I'm just briefly sketching things in. I have trees here, so I'm going to put in some abstract tree shapes. This isn't anything finished. Trying to keep an idea of the composition so that the eye is led through the entire canvas. And again, this is just like a little road map. When you take a road trip, sometimes you have a destination plan, but you take little detours as you go along the way. And that's kind of how all my artwork is. You know, you can plan, but you can only plan so much. That creative spirit and that input takes over for you when you're working and takes you in a whole different directions you never imagined you'd go in. Some of them good, and I've had some stinkers, some of them bad. The thing I like about working with pencil is I can go ahead and just brush it off. I'm going to use, and I use toilet paper. I can kind of take it off this way. I can also wash it off. But again, remember, with oil versus watercolor, you can always make corrections. We don't have that luxury that easily when we work on watercolor on paper. So corrections are definitely an easier thing with the opaque quality that oil has. And I don't worry too much about the graphite of the pencil mixing into my watercolor. Sometimes it actually adds to the painting somehow. It brings in some darks. I've seen other professional artists use this, so I try to base a lot of things on what I see other artists, and by professional I mean teachers, artists that are exhibiting in galleries, the professional artists that you do see out there. And I try to pick tips up that way. So right now what I've done, I'll take this down again for you, is taking this particular sketch, which is a 9 by 12 of just a simple summer scene, mountains in the distance, more mountains coming into the foreground, some trees, some pasture land, maybe a stream running through here, trees here to kind of anchor it on each side, and then the bottom piece. And what I've taken is taken this watercolor study and transferred it onto a 11 by 14 canvas that I've toned with burnt sienna, and I've just lightly sketched this onto the burnt sienna with just a plain old number 2 pencil. So that is all I have right now for this particular segment. My next step that I'm going to do is start laying in color. I may use the same basic color palette that I used here. I may kick it up, I may bring it down a little bit, I may make it more high key, meaning the colors are more intense. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but I'll use this as my essential roadmap, and knowing that I may make some detours along the way. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have a creative day and keep practicing.